Arsenal. Is this finally the version we've been waiting for? Because let's be honest, after what we saw last season, there was one big question going into this campaign. Would Arsenal really look any different? Too often we saw plenty of possession, plenty of recycling of the ball, but not enough real threat. At times, the football became predictable. Get the ball to Saka and hope he creates something. If that doesn't work, try to find another way through a set piece. But after the opening game of the season, one thing already feels different. Arsenal haven't just won. They've actually played football, and that's a massive difference. From the opening stages, there was a clear intention. Arsenal wanted to go forward. They wanted to attack. They wanted to take risks and get the ball into dangerous areas. There was less of that safe, pointless possession. Less passing the ball around simply because nobody wanted to lose it. Instead, there was purpose. And for me, that might be the biggest positive of all. You've got Saka looking sharp again. You've got Ødegaard. You've got Ben White making those familiar overlapping runs. You've got Havertz constantly moving and linking play. And on the other side, you've now got another player who looks capable of creating something on his own. Tzolis. And honestly, we need to talk about him. Because it's not just about goals or assists. It's about the way he plays. He looks like a player who already knows what he wants to do before the ball even reaches him. He understands where the space is. He knows when to come inside. He knows when to stay wide. And more importantly, he seems to know exactly when to release the ball. Those little details matter. Waiting half a second before playing a pass so your teammate stays onside. Dragging a defender out of position before making the next move. Recognizing where the overload is and using it. That's football intelligence, and you can see it in his game. Tzolis doesn't need to be the fastest winger in world football. He doesn't need to beat 3 players every time he gets the ball. But he has something Arsenal have needed more of. He makes good decisions. And every time the ball reaches him, you feel like something could happen. That's what makes him so exciting. Because Arsenal now have another genuine source of creativity. Everything doesn't have to go through Saka anymore. Every attack doesn't have to follow the same pattern. There are more options, more movement, more unpredictability. And speaking of Saka, he was one of the biggest positives. Because this looked like the Bukayo Saka we know. Free, confident, demanding the ball, taking players on, changing direction without hesitation. Of course, not every decision was perfect. There were moments where he could have done better. But overall, he looked comfortable again. He didn't look like a player thinking about injuries. He didn't look like a player holding himself back. He looked like Saka. And when Saka is playing with that freedom, Arsenal's entire right side becomes dangerous. Saka, Ødegaard and Ben White have built that understanding over several seasons. The triangles, the combinations, the timing of the runs. They know exactly where the others are going to be. And you could see that connection again. Ødegaard looks for Saka. Saka recognizes Ben White's overlap. White arrives at exactly the right moment. It sounds simple, but that understanding is built over time. And when all 3 are on the same wavelength, it's one of the best attacking combinations in the Premier League. Then there's Kai Havertz. And this was one of those performances where you can clearly understand why Arteta values him so much. His movement was excellent. He dropped deep. He linked the play. He pulled defenders out of position. He attacked spaces. And that's the important thing with Havertz. He isn't just standing in the box waiting for a cross. When Arsenal are playing well, he becomes part of the entire attacking structure. He connects the midfield to the final third. He creates space for the players around him. And that makes Arsenal much harder to defend against. But the midfield deserves a mention too. Declan Rice. We all know what Rice gives you physically. The ball winning, the energy, the carrying, the ability to cover huge areas. But what's been really interesting is seeing his development on the ball, the way he's starting to break lines with his passing, the way he's becoming more involved in progressing attacks. That adds another dimension to his game, and it reflects something bigger about this Arsenal team. They seem to be playing with more freedom, less afraid of losing possession, more willing to take risks, more willing to play through the lines instead of endlessly moving the ball sideways. And that's a major change, because possession only matters if you actually do something with it. You can have 70% of the ball and still create nothing. But Arsenal, at least in this performance, looked like they had a clear purpose with possession. They wanted to hurt the opposition. And then there's Lewis-Skelly. He's still young. He'll make mistakes. That's inevitable. But the confidence is obvious. The way he handles pressure, the way he uses his body, the composure he has when players are closing him down. There's clearly something special there. You can see why Arteta trusts him. and the more experience he gets, the more interesting his development could become. Riccardo Calafiori is another huge part of this. For me, one of Arteta's biggest challenges this season will be keeping him fit, because when he's available, he gives Arsenal something completely different. That's why the addition of Ezri Konsa is important. You're bringing in a player who already understands the Premier League. He knows the intensity, the pace, the physicality, and he gives you options. Options at center-back, options on the right side of defense. And in a season where injuries are always going to happen, having players you can trust is essential. You can't build a title challenge around hoping your best 11 stay fit for the entire season. And that brings us to Bruno Guimaraes. A player of his quality can raise the level of Arsenal's midfield. He can control the game, compete physically, carry the ball, and dictate the tempo. Most importantly, he gives Arsenal another top-level option. And that seems to be Arsenal's direction. Keep raising the quality, keep adding options, not standing still because the team is already good, but always looking for ways to improve. Of course, we shouldn't get carried away after just a few matches. The season is long. Tougher tests are coming, and there will be injuries and difficult moments. But the signs so far are encouraging. Arsenal have more creativity, more options, and a team that clearly wants to attack. And that's the biggest difference from last season. Too often, Arsenal relied on Saka or a set piece to create something. Now, it feels like the whole team can create danger. There's more movement, more combinations, and more players attacking different spaces. And most importantly, they're willing to take risks. It feels like Arteta has finally given this team more freedom. Play football, take risks, go forward. Because with the quality Arsenal have, there's no reason to play with fear. The real test is still to come. We need to see how this team performs against stronger opposition and handles difficult moments. But if they maintain this intensity, stay fit, and continue developing, this season could be something special. Because Arsenal haven't just started getting results. They've started to look like a completely different team.